Hello and welcome to Bring Your Product Idea to Life. Today I'm speaking to Tamrin Dicks. Tamrin helps owners of professional service businesses make more money and keep more cash in the bank while having more time to live a life of freedom. I invited Tamrin onto the podcast to talk about burnout. This is something Tamrin has experienced in her own life, and she now works to help other business owners structure their business and their lives so that they don't reach burnout, and she also helps them if they happen to get there. So Tamrin talks us a lot about what burnout actually is, and it's actually a little bit different to what I thought it was. I really learned something new today. How to spot the signs you might be approaching burnout, what the difference is between burnout and stress, some of the things you can do to prevent burnout, and what to do if you actually find yourself in a position where you think, actually, this is something I'm experiencing. So there's an awful lot to share in this episode. Even if you are not feeling remotely stressed or close to burnout, it is still one to listen to. There might be signs you can spot in others as well as yourself, and there's lots of practical advice for what to do if you need support. So I would love now to introduce you to Tamrin. So hi Tamrin, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Vicky. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Can we please start by you giving an introduction to yourself, your business, and what you do?
Sure, no problem. So my name is Tamryn, and I run a group of companies with the Far Side Group, which sounds more impressive than it is because they're actually very small. But it started with an accounting business back in 2007 because I was good at accounting, and then I very quickly discovered I was only good at accounting and not good at business ownership, which I think we all do at some stage. You start a business because you're good at something, and then you discover that you're good at that thing, but you didn't know what it took to be a business owner. So I went through some very bad burnout, more than once, because it took me a while to recognize what burnout was, to understand what the impact that it had, and to understand the causes. I misunderstood all sorts of things, and I just kept trying to push through. And eventually, on the third round of burnout, I couldn't push through anymore. And I was forced to change the way I do things. So I had to rebuild. I rebuilt the accounting business, and I learned from that. And I had a good many years of freedom and fun. It was really good. And then 2020 hit. And then I realized so many of my clients were going through similar issues, similar structural problems that they didn't realize were there, that were causing burnout, causing exhaustion, and that 2020 just exacerbated. So I then started helping them with my experience, which is awesome that I could. And then that slowly became Farside Solutions, which is our coaching and mentoring arm. And that's what I love doing the most. So that's what I'm focused on right now. But I have managed to add a few extra little companies to the mix. But our main focus is helping business owners create freedom and to avoid that near collapse that I went through.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm so sorry that's something you've experienced. And thank you for coming on today to talk about it. So, as you know, I thought it'd be great if you could come along and talk to us about burnout. And it's a word that gets used a lot. And I'd love to know to start with, from your perspective, what is burnout and how is burnout different from being tired or exhausted or just going through a really busy period in your life?
It's such a good question because burnout it's become like a buzzword these days. People throw it around all the time. And I think that's good and it's bad. It's good that there's more awareness of burnout, but I think there's still not that much understanding of what it is. So that's such a good question. And I always compare burnout and stress because there is a huge amount of overlap. And that's basically what you're asking is, are you going through a bad period where you're stressed, which is normal in business building, or is it burnout? And the biggest way to tell the difference between the two is how you react when the cause is removed. So stress is caused by something specific. So it's a deadline, or it's a nasty client, or it's a big project, or even a difficult colleague that will cause stress. And the moment that is resolved, you will go back to feeling normal again. So if you reach your deadline, if the project ends, if the client moves on, if you change team members, you're going to start to feel better. And because of that, stress is characterized by being resolved by respite. So if you can step away and you feel better, it's probably stress. Whereas burnout is something that pervades. It's actually just entered every aspect of your life. You've got to a point where there's nothing left in you to cope with anything. So it doesn't matter if you take time off. It doesn't matter if you go away for a week. It doesn't matter if the project ends. That feeling is stuck with you. It hangs on you. There's nothing left in you to do anything. And because of that, burnout actually starts to have a knock-on effect into your personal life as well, which, I mean, that sounds like stress doesn't, and it does, because if you're stressed, you can be irritable, you can be snappy, you can be impatient. So it will affect your personal life. Burnout has a far more pervasive and longer consequence on your personal life as well.
Thank you so much. And I really wanted to make that distinction because while I think being stressed or overworked or exhausted is also not a nice situation to be in, I just wanted to make sure we were really clear about how burnout was different because it's, as you say, burnout is kind of all encompassing. Whereas you're right, you might be stressed at work, for example, but when you go home at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I can relax now because I'm not in that situation. So I guess uh, now we've got an idea of what burnout is. But something I wanted to ask is, so a lot of us running our own businesses kind of normalize being busy, being super tired, being stressed, having a lot on. What are some of the signs that it might be heading? Because I guess burnout, like you say, is all encompassing, but what are some of the signs that you might be heading towards burnout rather than it just being, normal day to day life, managing your business, your personal life, etc.?
Because burnout is something that pervades. If you are noticing, I think the biggest way to put it is if you are noticing yourself change, it's probably burnout. So you'll find burnout causes I wouldn't call them mood swings. It's like a mood change. Like if you used to be patient, you're suddenly impatient. If you used to be calm, you suddenly find yourself getting angry. You used to be a peaceful, positive person, and now you're anxious all the time. Because it has a very, I don't want to keep using the word pervades, but it has such a pervasive effect on your life. It soaks into the fabric of everything. And because of that, it begins to affect you and who you are and how you're reacting to circumstances. So I would say the biggest red flag for a business owner is how that feeling is affecting your personal life. Because it's one thing to be stressed at work because there's deadlines and there's projects and there's difficult clients or a team member's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's all normal. But if you're starting to snap at your children or your husband or your siblings, if you suddenly find, and this is a big one, is withdrawal. If you suddenly find you don't want to go out with your friends anymore, you don't want to spend time with other people, if you find yourself shutting down so you're not actually sharing with anybody, that's a bad sign. If you, there's that old story about dreading Monday. I would say dreading Monday is more likely linked to burnout than stress. Because stress, you'll know the deadline is coming. This is going to end at some point. And actually, although it might not be pleasant to go back to work on Monday under stress, it's also good because you know you can get this thing over and done with. If you're waking up every morning and you've realized that you've lost the love for what you do, it's probably burnout.
That's really interesting. Thank you. So I see what you mean about how it sort of maybe manifests itself more in your personal life, but are there things that you might be able to spot in your business? For example, does it affect things like your decision making or your attention span, your focus? Are there any signs there we can be looking for?
Absolutely. Because burnout, because you've got this sense of not enough, which is a very real thing. You do not have enough. You are empty. And that manifests in your personal life in emotions and not wanting to interact with people. But in business, it's going to give you decision fatigue. It's going to make things take longer than they should. Tasks that you used to finish in 5 minutes are now taking you 20. Conversations are hard. You don't want to force yourself to have them. You don't want to phone the client. You don't want to have a meeting. You're putting off the phone call that you used to be quite happy to do. You never used to be a stress for you. Now it's something that is just one more thing and you just can't face it. That's definitely going to be happening in your business. But burnout, one of the things that burnout does is it disrupts your system. So it disrupts your hormonal system completely. So you're living in a constant high adrenaline and low serotonin existence. It's one of the reasons why you start getting impatient and snappy and aggressive, is because you've got lots of adrenaline, you've used up all your serotonin. But because of that imbalance, and it starts to have other consequences as well, it badly affects your sleep. And sleep is vital for brain functioning. We used to think that sleep was the brain switching off at night and taking a rest. It's not. Sleep is when your brain works its hardest. It repairs itself and it helps you to process the things that happen in the day. It helps you to process knowledge. It helps you to solidify memory. It does all sorts of amazing things that we really need. And burnout will affect your sleep. So if you're not sleeping properly, which you will not be if you're in that stage, then you're definitely not functioning properly the next day. And you're not making decisions as well as you should. You'll find your creativity has dropped, your passion has dropped, your focus has dropped. It really does have a very negative effect all around on everything.
That makes sense because I think, all you need is to miss one night of sleep. And I don't know about you, but if I miss one night of sleep, I might feel a bit more emotional the next day. I might not want to make decisions. I might, all kinds of things, I guess, depending on everything else going on in your life. But you definitely feel it. So I guess an accumulation of poor sleep, yeah, I can definitely see how that's going to have a really negative impact on your life. What would be good to know is, are there any common misconceptions you hear about burnout that stop people thinking, this is what's happening to me, and stop them recognizing it in themselves and maybe in others as well? Because as I say, and you would have seen yourself in your work, a lot of us think, we run businesses, we're going to be tired, we're going to be stressed, we're going to have difficulties. Are there any
Mm.
sort of common misconceptions or myths you hear that you think aren't helping people?
Yes, there's two that I think have the biggest impact. I think the first one is that there's a lot of people that believe that burnout is caused by a lack of love, a lack of passion. So it is you'll see it a lot in posts, normally content aimed at employees, but also business owners. And that, of course, that thought carries through. There's a lot of posts about if you're doing something you don't enjoy, if there's no love in what you're doing, you're going to burn out. And that's a big myth. That's a huge myth. The times I have had the most burnout in my life was because I was passionate about what I was doing, and so I didn't want to stop and I didn't want to fail because that thing meant so much to me that I kept pushing when I should have been resting. So that is a big misconception. Burnout will actually cause a loss of passion, not the other way around. Um, Obviously, doing something you hate is not going to help you at all in general in life. That can cause negative mental consequences, but it doesn't cause burnout. So burnout is there's three causes for burnout. It's overload of work, not enough resources, which obviously differs from person to person, but for most of us, it's time and money. But not enough resources to do this overload of work well, actually, it's an overload of responsibility, but we're talking business, so we think work. But responsibility is important because business owners are not silos. We exist as human beings, and you've also got responsibilities to friends and family and yourself and children and all sorts of things that you're adding to the mix, and you're carrying that on top of your workload with this lack of time, with this lack of money. Um, and that combined with chronic stress causes burnout. So all of those things can combine whether you are passionate about what you do or not. you can face those things. So I think it's very dangerous that people think that if they love what they do, they're not going to burn out. That's one of the dangers. And then the the second myth that I think is as dangerous is the exact opposite, because burnout has become this buzzword. I think every second person says, "Oh, I'm burnt out," but they're not. They're stressed and a bit tired. They're drained from a project. And why I think that's dangerous is because those people who are burnt out, they take a weekend off or they go away for a week and they're fine again. And so it perpetuates this idea that burnout is easy to fix, that if I just take a few days off, go on holiday, have some me time, then it's going to be okay, which means that you can do it in cycles. You can burn out, rest, burn out, rest. That's not burnout. Burnout has depleted you, and it can take weeks to happen and it can take years to heal. So I think those two things is taking it too lightly is dangerous, and then also thinking that if you love what you do, so you're passionate about it, it's not going to happen to you. I think those are two myths that are dangerous for business owners when it comes to burnout.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And you explained then what doesn't fix burnout. So just, a weekend in the away or a week in the sun or whatever. What does fix it? What if someone came to you and they were experiencing burnout, what would you advise them to do?
Yeah, that's a huge question, because it's it's this idea of too much responsibility, too few resources. What's causing burnout in your business is a structural problem. And this is why I say I did what so many business owners do, is I was good at accounting. And then I opened an accounting firm thinking that would carry through. And obviously I could give good accounting to my clients because I'm a good accountant. But a business involves so much more than just providing your service to your clients. There's all these different layers of the marketing, the sales, the admin, the technology, the operations and customer care that you're doing on top of that build a business. And all of that is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger as your business grows. And because we are good at what we do, but we didn't learn how to be a business owner, we don't necessarily know how to create the structures to handle those things. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know what we're doing. We do the best we can. There is a lot of information online these days. That's a big blessing of the digital age, is that you can learn. But if you didn't know you need to know something, you don't know what to Google. So it can still be difficult to build a business. What most of us do is build self-employment. And that's great to a point. But if you do have desires to grow beyond that point, you're going to hit a ceiling. You're going to hit a point where it's too much for you, but you don't actually know how to go from that ceiling to the next step. And that's normally when people burn out, because they're pushing so hard to reach the next step. You know that you need money for the step. You're thinking you need to hire someone or you need to buy a specific piece of software or something like that. So we try to make more sales. But of course, the more sales you make, the more work you have, the more costs you have. And so you just get into this cycle of exhausting yourself. Sorry, this is a really long answer to your question. But I just, to understand the place that someone is in when they're burnt out and they recognize that they're burnt out. The problem is definitely structural in the business. The issue with now, how do I help you fix that, is you can't start working on the business because you're burnt out. You're at a point where you can't deal with anything more. And that means you also do not have the capacity to learn something, to try something new, to find hours you don't have to strategize how to fix what's going wrong. You don't have that capacity in yourself. So if you are burnt out, the first place you need to start is with you. You have to heal first. I don't even look at the business, and I don't recommend looking at the business. You need to heal first before you have the strength and the ability to start looking at what to fix in the business. Did that answer the question you asked?
Yeah, no, that did, thank you. And I'm guessing as well that it's gonna be individual for everybody as well, because everyone's situation will be different. I'd love to know if there's someone listening now and they're thinking, "Oh, this sounds like me. Maybe, maybe I'm experiencing this, or maybe I'm getting close to it." What would you want them to know or do in this moment?
Um, if you're not sure if you're burning out, first of all, I want them to know that that's perfectly normal, because there are so many misconceptions flying around there about burnout and stress and what it takes to build a business. Because I do want to emphasize, it does take hard work to build a business. If you're in startup phase, you do need to work hard. There are sacrifices that are required, and all of that is quite normal. But the business should grow to a point, and you should be able to begin putting things in place that stop that pressure from being on you in the long run. And I think that's where most of us battle, and that's where the burnout starts to kick in. If you're unsure if you're burning out, I actually have a quiz you can take. I don't know if we can put it under this video, but I would say as well,
Of
just
course.
without the quiz, is step away from the business for a short period of time. So if you aren't taking weekends, take one off. If you are taking weekends, maybe try give yourself a Monday and a Friday as well. So you just got that extra time. And when I say step away, I don't mean take a weekend, but you're still checking your email and you're looking at your phone and you're thinking about the work and you're jotting down ideas. You need to step away. So even if that means that you actually physically have to exhaust yourself by doing physical stuff all weekend so that you don't think about the business, that's what you need to do. You need to get your mind away from the business completely, and preferably give yourself time to just decompress away from a screen, because it's another story entirely, another podcast all about what these screens do to us in regards to burnout. But if you can stay off your phone and build a puzzle or go outside or go for a walk or something like that, and you spend that time away from work, then when you come back, see how you feel. Because if you are refreshed and refocused and feeling excited, you were probably just stressed or in the early stages of burnout. Whereas if you've had 3 to 4 days off and you're coming back dreading work, then burnout has probably pervaded your life already.
Thank you. I think that's really helpful. And based on based on what you've seen in your work and with your clients, what kind of support or changes can make a difference to somebody that's approaching burnout?
So as I said earlier, the causes of burnout are structural. So there's a structural problem in the business, but you don't have the strength to deal with that. So technically, I could say, yes, implementing structure will make a big difference, but it won't, because you don't have the strength to do that. So, and the other thing that the changes that you need to implement are boundaries. You need boundaries for yourself, your staff, your clients, and I'd also love to say prioritize self-care. But all of those things are very, very difficult when you're already so drained and so uh, de- depleted would be the word. And I think so. A good place to start in terms of making changes, I would say, is to start recognizing that you are the company's asset. This company is yours. It's your ideas, it's your passion, it's your process, it's you that started it and that embodies it. And that makes you the asset of the company, if you collapse, you take it with you, especially in the early stages of business building. If you're gone, the business is gone. And if you recognize that this business needs you to be healthy, then being healthy becomes a business activity. It's not selfish, which I think is the biggest problem that business owners face. We have this feeling that if I take care of myself instead of doing this huge pile of tasks that I have piling up, because we always have to-do lists that we haven't completed, if I take time for myself, I'm being selfish, I'm being detrimental towards the business doing these things. And recognizing that taking time for you is as important for the business as doing those tasks is a big change that I think makes a big difference for a lot of business owners, is recognizing that you need time off. Time off has been scientifically proven to improve our performance. If we don't take the time off, our performance drops. Our ability to, like we were discussing earlier, your ability to make decisions, your ability to focus, to be creative, all of those things are impacted by a lack of sleep, a lack of rest, and by the burnout itself. And just taking one day off a week can actually help with that. Stopping work at a decent hour, because how many of us work way past 6 p.m. because we just one more thing. Just one more email, just one more phone call, just one more. And making sure that you actually stop at a decent hour, that you get a decent amount of sleep every night, that you have those boundaries in place for yourself and with other people, that will make big changes in how burnout is affecting your life.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Because I think you're right. So many of us feel like as a business owner, we need to constantly be working and always on our emails and on top of everything. And you're right. There is guilt around stepping away, taking time for yourself, switching your phone off, or even putting it down. So I think you're right. Giving ourselves that permission is really important. And on the other side of that, Tamrin, so are there things that don't work when it comes to preventing burnout? Perhaps things you've seen people do or try, or things you've heard that you're just like, actually that won't help you, or maybe as a short-term fix, but actually in the long term won't have much benefit.
Yeah, so we actually talked about it earlier, that idea of taking a week off or taking a day or two off and thinking that'll fix it. It will not. It does help. And it's very important in terms of starting that healing process. There's a lot more that you need to do. You can't just take a day off a week and think that the other 6 days are going to be, they'll be better than when you were working 7 days a week. But you're not going to be fine. You still got a lot of work that you would need to do on yourself and on the business. But really, I think the biggest mistake that business owners make is they work harder because they can feel this pressure and they feel stuck. They feel stuck in this cycle of not enough energy, not enough money, not enough cash. And then they think they need a team, so they need to hire people, and then they think, well, that all they need is that one big break, that big client or that big project, that thing that will provide that huge influx of cash that will just solve everything. And so they push harder. And more money is not actually going to solve a burnout problem. Another sale does not help. Not if the problem is structural. If you've got that structural problem in the first place, then another sale is just more work. So I would say that's probably the worst thing that a business owner can do, is to keep pushing when they've reached the point that they've got nothing left to push with.
Thank you. So for anyone who's listening, who's thinking, okay, that sounds great, but I can't slow down. I don't have the luxury of slowing down. I need to keep pushing. I'm starting my business. I'm growing my business, whatever it is. What would you say to them?
All right, so first of all, I would say stop feeling guilty for needing to slow down and needing to take time, because like we said earlier, time to rest is a business activity. And you need to look after yourself. If you're the company's asset, if you looked at a factory, they have so many machines, and in not one single case do they work those machines without maintenance. They stop them at some point during the year and they make sure that they get the maintenance that they need. If you are pushing yourself without maintenance, without a break, without any care, you are going to break. And then you're destroying the most important thing that business has. So I'd say that the first thing is to recognize that slowing down is good for the business. That's the one thing I would. But and recognizing that rest is not selfish. It's a business necessity. But I do understand there are stages of business where things are just crazy. And I think that's another thing we need to do is give ourselves grace for the crazy periods and accept that it's not going to be perfect. So you can only do what you can do. And like I said earlier, taking a day off and having that rest is not going to fix it anyway. You need to do a lot more to fix burnout. There's physical steps I would highly recommend for self-healing. And then, of course, when you're in a position where you can feel like you can breathe and you can handle starting something new, then there's business steps that you would need to implement. But it's going to take time to get there. So while you're busy, while you're overwhelmed, while you feel like you can't not do what's in front of you, the second thing I would say is take control of your calendar. Don't let your work control your time. You need to control the work, which is a lot easier said than done. It's very easy to say. We've always got this huge long to-do list as a business owner. It never stops. And it's very easy to get lost in whatever is in front of you right now because everything is urgent and everything is important and everyone wants a piece of you. But if you take the time to sit down on a Sunday evening or a Monday morning or whenever it works for you and intentionally plan your week, it will make a completely different working experience for you. I don't recommend a specific technique because everyone's different. So you need to be honest with yourself and how you work and use a structure that works for you. I'm not a very structured person, which always surprises people because I'm an accountant. But I'm not traditionally structured. One of the reasons I started my own business is because employment actually depressed me. I couldn't handle having to be at a specific place at a specific time in a specific way, and that continuous routine was just horrendously depressing for me. So I can't have a set schedule where I go, okay, I'm going to check email from 9 to 10 a.m. and then I'm going to do marketing from 10 to 12. I can't do that because I will lose my mind. In 3 days, I will be off that schedule. So I have to do what I don't even do time blocks. I don't even go, okay, well, for the morning, I will work on this project. I can't even do that. I use what I call concept blocking. So mine is more like for Tuesday morning, I work on marketing. It could be any marketing thing that I feel like doing on Tuesday morning, but that's what I've given Tuesday to. And that works for me. For other people, the actual time blocks might work better. But however you do it, sit down in the beginning of your week and make sure you know what your non-negotiables are. So what are your urgent and important items, the things that must happen this week? They have deadlines, they have consequences, they cannot not be done. Make sure you know what those are and when they must be done by. And then know what's important to you that's not necessarily as urgent as these other things that you also want to fit in because they're going to move you forward and change the situation that you're in and fit those in. And then fit everything else in the best way that you can. And understand that if you can't get to something, it's okay. Give yourself the grace that if you can't get to something, it's okay. There's another day and there's another week, and everybody's overloaded. And I know that's very easy to say. It's not very easy to do.
I still really love that. Thank you. Because I wanted to ask you for like a small practical suggestion and you've just given it. So thank you so much because I agree with you. I think taking control of your time makes a real difference. Similar to what you say, on a Friday, I plan out my next week and honestly gives me so much of a feeling of calm because I know, okay, if there's a day when I don't know, I've got a personal appointment in the morning, sometimes can't be helped, you have a doctor's appointment or something, you can kind of
Mm,
make that day
mm,
lighter because you already know you have something going on. And just sort of knowing at the beginning that, okay, bar anything unexpected happening, I've kind of got control of this. I think can really help you go mentally, for me anyway, going into the week, feeling like, okay, I kind of know what's coming
mm,
up. I know what the important things are. And yeah, I think, and I really liked also what you said about giving yourself permission to not do it all, because there are always those tasks that end up being pushed a day, pushed a week, maybe don't end up getting done. But I've started to look at those now and think, if it still hasn't been done, does it ever need to be done? Because I think sometimes that's a big clue. And often, if you review your to do list, I think all of us have those things on there where we feel we should be doing, but actually they're not
mm.
going to do anything to move our business forward.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I think we all hear it all the time that there's a difference between being busy and being productive, and all of that is just noise in a business owner's era because we're busy. We've got a lot to do. It's not in your head. It's not imagined. And the other thing is that a lot of advice for business owners comes from more advanced business owners, people who've gone further down the line, have built a bigger business, they're successful, and we should listen to them because they have built something successful. That's amazing. But you've also got to measure that up against where you are and where they are. Because I remember I heard wonderful advice once from a billionaire in terms of planning. I actually have a webinar based on what he said. It's somewhere on my YouTube channel. I'm trying to remember from purpose to productivity is what I called it, and it's very useful. And we talk about this time blocking and that sort of thing. But he talked about um, setting 4 big goals for the year, and then assessing all your tasks for the week against those things. Putting them in their blocks and then assigning them their place. And if it didn't fit in one of the 3 blocks, he called them vortex tasks. So those are tasks that had to be done in the business, but they took him away from moving the business forward. They didn't achieve his goals, so he used to put them in this vortex block, and then he would delegate them, which is wonderful if you have a team. We're talking about the billionaire of a massive company. He could delegate anything and everything if you wanted to. It's easy to focus on these tasks that build your business and take it forward and achieve your goals. It's easy to do that if that's all you have to do because you have 100 people that you can give everything else to. But the reality is that most of us are doing this alone, completely and utterly alone. And if that's where you are, you need to give yourself the grace to accept that you're not that big businessman and you can't follow his advice no matter how good it is. It's not for you. So,
That's really helpful, thank you, because I feel like it can be so easy to compare yourself to others and think, "Oh, I should be doing what they're doing. I should be as productive as them. I should be as far ahead as them." And that's something, I think been a lot of talk about for a long time now about, not comparing yourself to other people, particularly when their reality may not even be exactly how it appears. That is brilliant advice. So what I would love to ask you now, and this is our last question, Tamrin, is what is your number one piece of advice for anyone who right now is feeling exhausted or a bit stuck? What would you like them to hear?
I think, that place of being stuck, it's a terrible place to be. It's really awful to know that you're overwhelmed and you're exhausted, but you just can't see the way out. Um, and and I think it's difficult to give one piece of advice because everyone's reasons for being stuck can vary wildly. Um, but if I am only going to give one piece, I'm going to make it physical advice. Because, like I said earlier, if you're exhausted and burnt out, you can't fix the business before you heal yourself. So I would say the first thing I would say is get more sunshine, which is not easy to do in a Northern Hemisphere winter. But if you can, if there is sunshine outside, go stand in it. When there isn't sunshine outside, go look for a salon in your area that has pink light or red light therapy, because it sounds mad, but it works. So go lie under that for a while. But sun has far more benefit to us than we realize, and we need it. And it improves your mood. It improves your ability to sleep. It improves your ability to process things. It's phenomenal, and it improves your health. So get more sun and then fix your sleep, which again, so easy to say. Sleep is not an easy thing to fix when it's broken. And I do know that, but like we mentioned earlier, it's not your body switching off. It's the way your brain heals itself. So you really do need to sleep. And it's not just about quantity, it's also about quality and type. We have about 4 different stages of sleep that we go through in a night, and we need all 4. None of them are junk stages. Your brain does specific things at each stage. So if you want to fix where you are, you need to fix your sleep, which is not easy to do. I highly recommend, actually, I listened to it recently. There's a podcast on Diary of a CEO with Matt Walker, who's a sleep expert. And I highly recommend listening to that. It's probably one of the best condensed, what's the word I'm looking for? Step-by-step explanations of how you can fix sleep that I've ever heard. But really, really focusing on sleep is something that will definitely have a big impact, no matter how stuck you are, and no matter what the actual cause of being stuck is. Sleep will help you.
That's so useful, thank you. And I will try and find that episode and link to it in the show notes. And also, please do send over the quiz that you mentioned. We'll link to that as well as to your socials, your website, and everywhere people can find you. So thank you so, so much, Tamrin. I found this really useful. I think it's been so informative. I thought I knew what burnout was, and it turns out I didn't until we had this chat. And it's been brilliant. Thank you.